That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by Tim Verghese from Inside Nebraska. Tim, what's going on, buddy?
How's it going, guys?
TV, what's up, buddy? How we doing?
Hey, not too bad, not too bad.
Yeah, I'm quietly between me and Ravi and now you because I'm saying it out loud. I'm pretty mad that Ravi thinks we can't have any sort of a good show unless you're part of it. So I wanted to do this exercise on our own, but of course he wouldn't let me do it by myself. He had to wait for you, TV. So I'm like, here we are. I was offended all week.
It's true. He was very in his feels about it and being sensitive.
I'm like, can't we do this without Tim? We
I
can't.
said absolutely not. We can't even manage.
I trust y'all. Y'all don't need me.
Yeah, see, that's how I feel.
I disagree. He's been like this all week, Tim. So I just decided to lean into it.
It was such a fantastic idea, man, and I
thought, the only person that can execute this with us, Tim.
You gotta wait
the only guy we do it.
I can't talk to because I literally just turned my revised list in to the guys to get it up on screen. So that was at
Yeah,
7.
I don't feel good about this coming off the hand. Like I was like, there's like 2 or 3 I really want to put in here. And
I gave him
let's get
11
to
and I
it.
cut 1.
Honestly, I thought it was harder to get to 10 than I thought it was to get it down to 10.
Really?
Yeah.
Tim, did you get to an easy 10?
Yeah, I mean, 10 wasn't hard to get to. It was after that where I was like, who do I cut? Like, again, and it's kind of taking the pros and the cons of both sides, where it's like, okay, this is a highly established play caller, but maybe a young quarterback, or vice versa, where it's like, oh, he's a brand new quarterback, but or like a unproven play caller, but I'm a big fan of the quarterback, and I think ultimately the pairing's going to work out. So that's where my challenge arose.
All right, let me start with 10 bits first because that's one of my favorite parts. Because we do have to touch on a little bit of recruiting with Nebraska coming off the huge 7-on-7 event, and so let's start right there. And I'll get to guys like Sorensen in a second. But I've been asking our guys degree of difficulty when you watch this thing from start to finish. You saw how well ran it was, the players' feedback, them doubling down with the camp. Making sure that you met all the parameters from what you could and couldn't do. You got to be good rule followers. What was the degree of difficulty you gave Nebraska as a score for pulling this off last weekend?
Ooh, man, like, I mean, when you consider how this came to, and again, peek behind the curtain a little bit. Um, Again, I'm a little more involved on the 7-on-7 scene than other media folks around here. So I offered a little, like insight and as much as I could in the setup for this. I mean, they like the final list of teams didn't really get put together till like a couple hours before the tournament. Like I'm talking like within 72 hours of the tournament, like the final list of like here's who's going to be there. And then you factor in, okay, a lot of these 7-on-7 teams, when they go to these national tournaments where there's the battle or OT7 or an Adidas independent event, usually the sponsors cover that. Because of NCAA regulations, Nebraska couldn't do that, so they had to get all these guys to fly in on their own dime. And then you factor in the fact that, okay, on top of all of this, you have to cross a line. Okay, how many of these teams are going to have a team that's able to compete because a lot of their seniors aren't OVs, and we have a bunch of 27 and 28 prospects coming in for this Huddle Future Forum. How many of these guys would be interested in playing? And that's how you got Duvet Williams on NPA. That's how you got Trey Taylor and Ahmad Hudson on Miami Raw. And so some of those guys were able to play. And then the Huddle Future Forums thing, like we were talking to people like higher ups at Huddle, like early in the week that were like, yeah, we don't have the full list just yet. And then Wednesday they sent us the full list and we're able to, it came together. But even that one came together late. So all of this was like, they're working up like literally up until the event started to put this thing together. Really, really impressive stuff. And again, like I said, coming out of the weekend, again, there were 7-on-7 coaches on Friday that were showing me their phone with like texts from other head coaches being like, "What did Nebraska give y'all?" And or how did Nebraska pull this
And
off?
they're so over the top too. I'm glad they at least you're cool with them too because I watched some of those guys, man, and I was losing my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, I like okay, I'll give you a quick example too. Like just for example of how seriously and how scorned school took this. I had a 7-on-7 coach show me or ask me basically what was Nebraska's presentation to y'all when you got there, and he just took a picture of like essentially the scene when they arrived,
Yeah.
and he was like, well, here's ours. For whatever reason, they got this thing confused with OVs, and they're basically showing them like what a weekend of an OV at another school looks like. This wasn't an OV weekend. All these schools and these teams paid to be at Nebraska to be there.
Mm. Tim, so as we get into some of the specifics of the guys that were there, obviously Nebraska gets the offensive line commit from Rex. There's some Sorensen's out there as a tight end people are talking about. There's some edge recruits as well. What do you think in terms of not just the overall impact, because DB and I have talked a lot about that, but in terms of more tangible impact from this weekend, do we think we're going to see some of those dominoes fall?
Yeah, dominoes are going to fall pretty quick. I mean, you saw Hayden Ainsworth he's going to announce on Monday that, read between the lines there. Feels pretty good about Nebraska coming off that weekend. Luke Sorensen canceled his Penn State OVE, still locked in for June 20th as his commitment date. There's some momentum around Cameron Wilson. He is taking his visits. He's supposed to be at Syracuse this weekend. So we'll see how that goes. But Nebraska does feel good in that one. And yeah, it's just kind of like building momentum and getting those guys around each other. Like, we're like a big opportunity for them is the line, which is a concern in this recruiting cycle. And now you're at a point where you may get out of this summer with 4 offensive line commits, and then you're pretty set, potentially like 3-4 offensive line commits where it's like, okay, now we can just kind of go big game hunt if we want another tackle, if we want another lineman. And yeah, I mean, like, again, at this point, the real concern is, I mean, defensive line recruiting, like, and wide receiver recruiting, just because both those boards are pretty small right now. But I'm not worried about wide receiver recruiting just because no matter what happens this summer, I do think Nebraska early season is going to be able to show enough on field that you're going to get some top wide receivers in the country interested in what Nebraska is doing. So I'm not worried about wide receiver recruiting. D-line recruitment is a different thing. It's just kind of Terry Braid's getting his feet under him, they're just kind of figuring some things out. So right now it's expected Valenzone's going to be in town for Friday Night Lights with the PPI crew. He's currently expected to stick around for an OV this weekend, but we're still waiting official confirmation on that. I still am not like super high on Nebraska's chances in getting over the top there, but they could get it done. Like that's really where we're at right now, where I think Nebraska needed that weekend just to also kind of put the fan base at ease of like, hey, let's guys spend like an all expenses paid weekend on campus here. It's hard to say no to the program.
Interesting with Sohn, and I get it. I mean, Blue Ridge, that's a pretty rich talent area. How important do you think these first this particular visit will be in the grand scheme of things?
If he stays the weekend and it's a true OV, really important. Just because Nebraska hasn't really had the opportunity to like roll out the red carpet for him. But they've made him feel like a priority, and so far, I mean, of the schools in this, they've gone above and beyond in showing him interest with Braden, going across the pond to go visit his mom, and you've got, like while he was doing that, EJ Bartel was in Blue Ridge to meet with Val. Like they've gone above and beyond to make him feel like a priority, but like George is all in. Like I talked to a source close to Georgia yesterday that said George is all in on this kid. They want him, which again tells you a little bit about the type of talent he is. An international prospect, 4-star defensive lineman that's 6'5", 320 pounds, and Georgia's all over him. Florida's all over him. Ohio State offered yesterday. They're going to be all over him moving forward. Texas wants him real bad. Like the who's who of college football, the schools that like major in trench play want him.
All right, listen, humor me or tell me I'm all wet. I saw this work with Sanders Jr. Sometimes you get athletes that have different sorts of backgrounds, and you have to really get into how the family ticks. How about the fact, or is it a fact, or could it be something where, because of Son's background and being from Sweden and cultural and things that he's used to and things that he's not used to, that it may not so be much about the flash and dash, but more the connectivity of what he's accustomed to being where he's from originally?
There's an element of that, but on the other side of it, I do think the way this recruitment's being handled, especially over the last 6 months or so, it's going to be kind of it's an NIL recruitment. It's turning into that.
Mm. Tim, is there anybody that we haven't talked about that you're just like you got the antennas up a little bit? I know you mentioned Cam Wilson. That's the one that I was taking a look at. You mentioned some of the guys with Ainsworth with commitment dates. Is there anybody that caught your eye that maybe Nebraska offered or has a Nebraska offer that we're not really talking about that you're still thinking about from the weekend?
Yeah, I mean the
How much
26th
attention are you paying to CJ and whether he goes to Florida State or not?
He's at Florida State, so he made it.
I'm not Florida State, Penn State.
Yeah, that's another one I'm going to keep an eye on. Yeah, like it's something I'm monitoring through the week. I mean, people like on Nebraska's end and on Bruno's end too, like continue to be confident that Nebraska is going to be the one to land him. And I'm still like on both sides of it. I'm like, okay, it's still June. Like he's still 6 months away from signing any papers. Like let's not throw a victory parade just yet because again, you're going to see schools potentially circle back in the fall. But if Nebraska can get to that point by the end of this month or even next week where they can get him to publicly announce that he's shut down, even if schools do try to circle back down the line, that's a big win. Yeah,
Do you know how bad I wanted to pick Caleb's brain? I mean, it's right there in my own backyard. I just saw the guy 30 minutes before he had to leave to take him out, and I didn't ask him one question.
And I was talking to someone recently just about like from a state of recruiting standpoint about Nebraska in 2026. Again, we made a lot about this class, about what this could be. If Nebraska ends up with Brona and then they're able to close with two of the three of Darian Jones, Devin Jackson, Danny Odom, or three of the three, that's sneaky one of the best DB classes in the country.
You know what's funny is I was watching our own film because we had 7-on-7 Wednesday against North, and I could tell by one of my kiddos' responses when I got back of how'd it go. Because I usually try to get to those, especially if they're at 10. I get out of here early, but they wanted to go at 9. And the look that he gave me on how it went against North, I didn't even need to ask the follow-up question, but I did. I go, Darian just had a day. And he looked at me and he said, oh, yeah, he's tough.
Yeah.
And so we're obviously watching the film as a staff, and I get it. It's just 7-on-7 in the summer. There's a couple of things I think about him that we are totally downplaying because I'm kind of over the comparison between him and Pittman. Not only are they two different grades, but it's not going to be one or the other for Nebraska. So I'm not really entertaining that discussion. But I will say this about Darian. He's the only guy that I can remember in the last year of game planning that you have to know where he is on offense, defense, and special teams when you're putting a game plan together. Like for me and what I do at this level, it's kind of rare where you fit him into your game plan and knowing where number 11 is.
Yeah, absolutely. I was there on Wednesday. Really liked getting to watch him a little bit, and like he's obviously extremely talented defensively, but the stuff he's able to do offensively and his ability to get
open. How he goes to go get a ball.
Yeah, like it's really impressive, man. Like he's just a ball player, like pure ball player. But on the flip side, like I really like what I saw from Braylon, and I'm very interested to see what Bryson Williams at receiver looks like this year.
Yeah, and that was interesting too because he didn't have Eli, he didn't have Mo Purify. Like that off, they're still a little young in some spots. But for Braylon, he throws about as good a natural ball as you're going to see anybody at that age. Like it comes out of his hand pretty pure.
Pretty pure, and his placement of it, his accuracy. I was talking to Steve on the sideline, and I was like, man, has he always been like, I feel like the accuracy's been taken up a notch. And Steve was just like, that's kind of who he's always been. And kind of just didn't obviously always get that opportunity last year to like really air it out. But they've got, y'all have the weapons now or had the weapons. And I'm very excited to see what that looks like. Cause yeah, his ability to place it, like there were a couple throws downfield to Mo and to Bryson where I was like, he's just putting it where those two guys can get it. And it's not like, again, it's not like there's like, just nobody out there in the secondary. I mean, it's Darian Jones back there. It's good DBs back there.
Yeah.